And we're back for another reading of God Will Work With You, But Not For You, A Living Philosophy by Russle. Chapter 7. Christ Consciousness. The fifth and final stage of spiritual unfoldment is Christ Consciousness. It is the highest state of attainment which all mankind will eventually reach. Jesus of Nazareth is the only man in all recorded history who has ever reached that stage of complete God awareness. He was so fully illumined with the light and the love which God is, and the omniscience and omnipotence which God is, that he could knowingly say, "I and my Father are one." The birth and life of Jesus was the supreme event of all history. The life of God's messenger of love has been a light which will illumine the world forever, and his death by man's hands plunged man's world into the dark for 12 long, cruel centuries. Who has fully attained the cosmic light in full awareness? He who has finally attained the cosmic light in full awareness has passed beyond fear of death, for he knows there is no death in eternal life. He who has reached the source of eternal good knows that there can be no evil in God's balanced universe. He who thinks he has been as one unit of creation has now become the universal thinker with the one mind source of all that has ever been or ever will be. He who has been subject to effort in matter becomes cause. Let me read that over again. He who has become subject to effect in matter becomes cause. He has learned to command matter by ages of learning to obey its commands. He can dissolve its void. He can dissolve and void the illness of man by projecting his balance into the unbalanced condition which caused them. Having become universal in his thinking, he is aware of any thoughts anywhere. All man's thoughts are known to him through the universality of the one mind whom he is. Jesus was the greatest intelligence the world has ever known. He gave the world the greatest teachings it has ever known. Extrasensory perception, which is just beginning to manifest in the telepathic and clairvoyant stage of man, and was fully and complete in Jesus. The inconceivability, that inconceivably wonderful illumination into Christ consciousness exalted Jesus to the God state of universal oneness. It was thenceforth impossible for him to see any man as being separate and apart from himself and from other men. Jesus knew of the electrical unity of everything in all the universe. He not only knew it with his mind, but could see it with his extrasensory vision. The aura which connects every object in the universe with every other object was perfectly visible to him. Because his unlimited knowledge and power, he was enabled to do many things which were so far beyond the comprehension of man that they were explainable only to man as being supernatural or miraculous. The time will come when you will be able to command matter to obey you as he was able to do. When that time comes in your knowing, the world will then know the naturalness of that which now seems so supernatural. As man unfolds into full mental growth, it is beyond his powers to either see or comprehend any state of mind which he is. Himself has not yet Let's read that sentence over again. Where is it? As man unfolds into full mental growth, it is beyond his powers to either see or comprehend any state of mind which he himself has not yet experienced. When we observe that people of today do not even understand the much lower stage of genius, how much more difficult it is and has been for man to comprehend the divine state when they find it in flesh and blood like their own. How often we hear people say that geniuses are especially born, and that they can never be like them because of that fact. People do not deny the existence of geniuses, however, for their extraordinary mental power is too evident in their works for denial. Neither can Jesus be denied, for he too is known by his works. He cannot be comprehended because Christ consciousness is too far beyond the present stage of mind unfolding for comprehension to be possible. It is more upon the order of man's thinking to place him in the realms of the supernatural. It is sufficient for everyone in the world to know that Christ consciousness is the ultimate goal for every man. It should be a glorious thought and the strongest possible incentive for right thinking and acting in this life in order to be a little farther ahead in each repetition of our unfolding. The only purpose of man on earth is to manifest God. Long eons pass, which time man manifests his physical self instead of his spiritual divinity, but the eons pass, and man learns his lesson eventually. Your journey is for the purpose of making the transition from the physical dark to the spiritual light of illumined mind. That is what creation is for. God is love. You are given your life by your Creator to learn how to express love until you become love. The world of man is hardly unfolded far enough to ever know what love means. The eons will tell it to him. His own joys and agonies will tell it to him, until someday he will know. Peace will then come to him with all happiness, beauty, and romance that love is as he passes through one uplifting stage after another to become the genius, the cosmic knower, and the supremely exalted Christ-conscious being. The journey of the individual will then end in the ultimate oneness of God and man. Part 2. In vain we build the city if we do not first build the man. Edwin Markham. Chapter 8. Universal Oneness. The highest spiritual emotion which is possible for you or any human to experience comes in those moments of deep exaltation and inspiration in which you have that glorious feeling of being at one with all the universe. When you have that ecstatic feeling of oneness with God and all creation, you have crossed the threshold which divides the world of sensation from the blissful heaven of mind consciousness. You have cast aside the shell of your outer self and become aware of the light which centers you. When you are in that spiritual state, you are attaining the conscious state of divine mind, which all mankind is seeking to attain, whether he is aware of it or not. The consummate state of spiritual exaltation in man is that state of ecstasy where the two interchanging expressions of love are no longer divided. They find unity and cessation from interchange through balanced interchange. When love is one in man, then man is love as God is love. When a genius or cosmic conscious mystic is uplifted to that exalted state, he knows that ecstasy which is the one unchangeable divine mind emotion. Then he becomes one with the Creator, and his creations are enduring, for they are divinely inspired and have God in them. To the extent in which you can be thus exalted in your moments of aloneness with God, you can know that state of ecstasy in which God's mind is yours. Your creations will then be enduring because your thinking is one with God's thinking. All people have great moments of baring their very souls to the urge within them to forever seek that oneness of divine mind which centers their consciousness. When you hear a happy child cry out its love for all the world and everything in it, that is the greatest moment of response to the soul urge to attain oneness with God. When you hear that whispering of the forest and sweet music of warbling birds, the buzzing and droning of bees and insects' wings, and their majestic pounding of surf on great rocks and sandy shores with inner ears attuned to the infinite, you are responding to that urge of your soul to attain your divine state of universal oneness. Deep love of nature is an expression of universal oneness in man, for it is love expressed universally. When man expresses love for other humans, he individualizes them and measures his love out to each one in different measure. But his love for nature is love for one. The voice of nature is God's voice speaking to us his way and in his language. He whose inner ears are attuned to its mighty rhythms know in them only the harmonies of God's love. When Beethoven became one with the mood of the night, he had attained oneness with God's rhythms. He became transient because of his exaltation, and he, in turn, inspires you to become transcendent and exalted. When a dear friend dies, your deep grief at his passing tells of your oneness of love for him and for the world. Another friend is sorely distressed, and love repeats his distress in you. A plane crashes with many people you have never known, but the agony of your severance from them comes from the fact of your oneness with them. You feel that you have lost something of yourself. These moments of grief and distress are great moments of exaltation, where love is all that is and all else ceases. These are your high moments when you are very close to God and God is very close to you. Many of our students write us, even though they have experienced flashes of cosmic exaltation, they cannot hold the ecstatic condition. Neither can they recall it at will. This exalted state, however, cannot be recalled at will, for even when you find such heights, you may soon lose them. Few humans can leave their bodies to become wholly mind for very long periods. One such hour is worth all the travails of a whole human life. It matters not this cosmic severance from sensation and consciousness lasts but a moment, or for a day, or for days. You will be completely transformed and know a power within you which you had never known before. Countless thousands had forever asked the Buddha and every sage and wise man through the centuries, "How shall I attain? Show me the way," thinking that if they are shown the way, they can attain it by desire alone. To those who ask, I say, yes, the way may be shown, but life must be lived to first manifest that which you desire to attain. As you live life, that which you see must be divided from that which you know. Each moment that you live, you may see many things, but in your great moments, these all disappear. You then know but one. If then I show you the way, it can only be by showing you the many things you see and dissolve them into that one thing you know. If we look upon a vast ocean, we can see countless numbers of waves. That is all we can see, just waves, for that is all there is to see. We can count them into the billions. They are of many dimensions, of varying powers of expression in motion. That which your eyes see are many separate waves, but that which you know is all But that which you know is that all are but one, each wave extending from every other wave. You see power expressed by these waves, but you know that the power they express is the ocean's power and not theirs. Activity ceases, the countless many waves disappear, they withdraw into their source. You can no longer see or count them, for they are the one ocean. They have found unity by losing separateness. They have found identity by losing individuality. As man, the individual will likewise lose his individuality to find immortal identity. Your body and mine, and the body of every other man on earth, are each but one wave of God's mighty ocean. As we look about us, we can see countless millions of seemingly separate wave identities. As we think out upon the world, we are aware of billions of other identities which we can see and count and measure. Every one of those bodies is extended from God's one mind ocean to manifest the power which is mind. If it were possible for every living body, which is extended from God's one mind source, to return to that source at the same time, the millions of identities of nature's countless creations would lose their own separate identities and find their unity with the one mind identity whom they manifest. When you look out upon the waters of the ocean, you can only see the waves of motion which manifest the ocean. You cannot see the power of the ocean, but you can know it as the one existent source of its waves. Man has looked out upon the universe through the eyes of his body for so many ages that he has grown accustomed to seeing separate and separable individual bodies. Bodies can see only bodies. They cannot know them, for their bodies cannot know anything. They can but electrically sense other bodies. That is the first greatest difficulty which unfolding man must overcome as he gradually becomes aware that he is not his body but mind. His body has done so many things and expressed such great power for such long ages that he has come to believe that his body is that power. If his body expresses more power than another body, he thinks of his body as being a greater individual than the other. Objective and comparative separability is the fixed habit of human sensing. But sensing is not knowing. Humans sense plants and stars in the heavens, millions upon millions of them. Likewise, they sense countless trees and forests, blades of grass in woodland meadows, birds and bees and butterflies of the air, fishes of the seas, and the countless insects and reptiles which impress their separate individualities upon the sensed bodies of man. That objective and comparative separability is very difficult for the unfolding mentality of man to eliminate. To think cosmically, however, one must eventually be able to dissolve that which he sees into that which he knows. If you make the attempt to do that from this very minute onward, you will be amazed at the increase of your own mind power within a year. Start doing it then by realizing that this objective universe is not made up of many substances and things. It is made up entirely of electric waves of motion which simulate many substances and things which you have always accepted as real. The moment you fully realize that when you fully realizes that not one thing in nature is what it seems to be, you are beginning to transcend your senses by your growing ability to dissolve what you see into what you know. That principle constitutes the difference between the one who senses by outward thinking to one who knows through inner cosmic thinking. It marks the line of demarcation between the physical and the spiritual man. He who has passed that line thinks cosmically. He knows cause, while he who senses is only aware of effects which he can never know. The physical man who becomes informed through his senses sees and hears many things, countless many things which are all real to him. The cosmic thinker knows only one thing, for he thinks with his mind, and he is empowered to dissolve all that he senses as effects into the one thing which he knows. He empowers himself with the ability to withdraw all thought waves of motion into the still calm of the one mind ocean which is the universe of knowing. Recall with me now those many things which this radio-electric universe has already taught you. It may be that we can look at them together with inner understanding that will make you think quite differently of them. Look upon them as stepping stones which lead you to a greater comprehension. Our senses tell us that there are many waves. We believe there are many because we can count them. Our senses tell us that, but when our mind thinks cause instead of effect, it knows that a wave never begins or ends. It is one continuity. If you sought the end of any wave, you would never find it. If you traveled 1 million years at 186,400 miles every second, you would be no nearer to the end of that wave than when you started to follow it. It cannot come to an end. Even the waves of the ocean cannot come to an end when they break upon the shore. They but change their dimensions to harmonize with the pressures of space and continue on as waves of light pressures instead of waves of water pressures. Yeah, a wave isn't a thing, it's what something does. If you're in the middle of a lake and you're flapping your arms, are you saying the waves are coming from that man flapping his arms? No, a wave is what something does. Moving on. Neither can waves begin. Sounds such as explosions are the source of waves which seem to begin where the sound occurs. But factually, they only change the dimension of waves, which are already there. Every point in this universe anywhere is the source of living waves of God's thinking, which never ceases to express God's thinking. The sound waves you create has an entirely different frequency than the thought which caused the sound wave. It can reproduce itself in space at only 1,100 feet a second, while the wavelength of your thought reaches out into space at nearly 200,000 miles in that same second. To demonstrate this, watch a man who is half a mile away shoot a revolver to start a race. You will see the flash from the revolver instantly, and then you will hear the sound 2 seconds later. At that very instant that you hear the sound from a half a mile away, a man who is 400,000 miles away in space would see it. These things you must know so that you can transform your thinking to be in accord with nature as you know it and as you see it. Knowledge vastly increases self-perception. Consider your own body as a focal point in this universe where waves have been changed in their dimensions by compressing them. You look about you and see other bodies like yours. You do not see anything between your body and these bodies, but the space between each body is brilliantly alive with waves which tie you all together as one body. The whole universe is thus tied together as one pulsing, intercommunicating body. When you walk among men, you are walking through them. If it were possible to see the electric commotion you caused as you walked through the bodies of other men, it would amaze you. Also, it would confuse you tremendously. The only reason you cannot see the brilliantly colored, rapidly changing electric effects caused by the thoughts and actions of other people is that your sense range is so limited that your eyes can only see wave vibrations between the ranges of 400 billion and 700 billion per second. Below that range, all activity of creation is invisible to you. There is not one pinhead-sized spot. There is not one pinhead-sized spot in it, however, that is not wave-activated. God eternally thinks, and his thoughts are eternally recorded everywhere. Every thought of God's thinking is repeated throughout the universe at the speed of thought, which is commonly known as the speed of light. This speed is not one of travel. However, for waves do not travel. They reproduce themselves at that speed. You must also realize that wherever there are waves, there are sounds, even in the blankets of outer space. Vibrations produce sounds beyond the perception of any living thing, but there is no silence anywhere, save in wave fulcrums, where motion reverses its spiraling course from centripetal outward and to centrifugal. Think of a drain. Centrifugal. Centripetal. Let's start that over. But there is no silence anywhere, save in wave fulcrums where motions reverse its spiraling course from centripetal to centrifugal and vice versa. Our human sense range is very limited, but is increasing rapidly as our spiritual nature unfolds. Our human range of hearing is limited to the range between 40 and 40,000 vibrations a second. Above that range, all other sounds are inaudible, as though they did not exist. The world around us is full of sounds which no man can hear, and things which no man can see. Every planet and star in the heavens has its own musical tone. The music of the spheres is not a poetic thought, it is factual. You do not hear it, though, because of your limited sense range. You look at a busy anthill and hear no sound. There is a tremendous sound activity there, however, but your ears cannot hear it. Those who have attained cosmic consciousness can clearly see the color densities which connect every object in the universe with every other object. They can see those stratas of increasing densities which so conspicuously surround all bodies, human and otherwise, with a glory of colors which rival the rainbow. During my husband's great illumination of 1921, which I mentioned previously, his range of sense perception so vastly increased during 3 of those 39 days that he could see the auras of people and things, even to seeing them in other rooms and approaching his door from the other side. He could hear and feel the adjustments which the planet is continually making in vast slippages of rock and strata, yielding to changing temperature pressures, and ocean bottoms adjusting their depths to changing gravity pressures. These great tensions, which are threatening major geologic changes in our western prairie lands and the mid-Pacific. These illustrations demonstrate the fact that knowledge can come to one only from within the mind. increasing extrasensory perception will vastly clarify the mysteries of life. However, by making much that was heretofore invisible and inaudible come within range of vision and hearing, the more you unfold mentally, the greater your range of perception will expand. The time will come when you can transcend your body entirely and sublimate all of its calls by voiding them. All geniuses have thoroughly acquired this liberation of body that they can forget it completely and withdraw its divided qualities into the fulcrum from which they were extended. Mental beings do not have to be physical beings when they desire to escape from being physical. When they attend to the needs of the body for body survival, they can become mind only and live in a mind world when they so desire. The more you can look at nature as one whole and yourself as all nature, the more you can command what you are to become what you desire to be. The more you can learn to work knowingly with God from moment to moment and talk with Him in His inspired language of light, the more you can transcend your own body and command it to perfection. In order to avoid the temptation and danger of becoming too scientific in telling you of the nature of the universe, a simple word picture of phenomena which is very similar to you might better affect the trend of your future thinking. Recall that familiar effect when you know what you know as an echo. You call into the valley, "Hello," and the distant hills call back, "Hello, hello, hello." This is radar. That is what a ship does when it sends out a beam to echo against another ship. If there is no ship there, no echo will return. Likewise, you may call your hello across the prairies, and you will not hear a responsive echo. Now, why is that? The reason is that the sound waves which you projected into space continued to expand without interference. The rising cliffs interfered with their expansion and forced them to contract instead of expand. Their condensation brought them back to the dimensions of the wave you projected. The hills then projected them to you, and you could hear them, for they again condensed as they re-echoed against you. Give thought to this effect more deeply. Was it not your own voice that came back to you from the hills? Did you not, therefore, extend your body to the hills? The waves that you extended from your body are as much your body as the waves which are confined in it. Can you say, therefore, that you occupy a fixed position in the universe? You have already projected your body and your thoughts to the hills. They do not stop there. They reached our moon in about 1 second, our sun within 10 minutes, and if people on any planet of Sirius could condense your voice, they could hear it in about 9 years. If you fully realized this fact, you cannot fully comprehend that you and all creating bodies are universal. Applying this principle to radio, consider that you are listening to a voice projected to you from Japan. It has been radioed to you from there. Other people also hear it in other countries. You and others are now the hills against which the hello from Japan is echoing. The man in Japan is the radar station which has broadcast a beam. You and those others are the ships which his radar has picked up. If you fully comprehend this principle, you are ready to apply it universally when I tell you that everybody in the universe is a broadcasting station and a receiving station for every happening which takes place in the whole universe. Likewise, every body is an antenna which picks up every thought wave of the universe. You are in all things, and they are in you. The power which generates waves for you to broadcast is the universal energy of mind desire. The waves you broadcast are thought waves. There are no other waves but thought waves in the universe. Thought waves emanate from mind. Mind is universal. Thoughts are universal. Every thought of mind is in all mind, not in just a part of it. All thoughts are, therefore, in all thought waves. Your limited range of perception has led you to believe that your body ends at your skin. Your unlimited cosmic range of knowing tells you that your body extends to the farthest reaches of space. Your body is but a thought wave record of your thinking. Therefore, your thoughts and all other thoughts are one. They are universal, even as you are universal. There are not two separate and separable units in all creation. Everything that is of everything else that is. The Divine Iliad. That's about it for today. Read a bit too much yesterday, so we'll pick this up tomorrow, possibly.